Happy to see you again.
And you too. Are you well?
Yes, yeah. Alhamdulillah.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah. You, everyone is good. Is in good situation. No problem of pandemic in your town.
Well, in Himachal itself, there is many problems. We are in very strict lockdown, but in the nunnery itself, we have no problems. And on Sunday, the nuns will start a 2-month silent retreat.
2 months retreat.
Then,
in the monastery.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the monastery.
So you will be all inside. You don't go outside the monastery.
No, not outside the grounds of the monastery. We have been inside for now since March of 2019. Nobody goes out.
We are so happy to receive you again, and we will collect all these interviews. I will do as our professor Jacques Vigne has done a book. So we will do a new book in Arabic on all these interviews. Hope so. We have already translated your first interview in French and in Arabic, and they are already available. Also, from yesterday, the interview itself is available on YouTube.
Okay.
And this new one will be available.
Thank you. Let's see how many questions we get through.
Yeah, hope we can. I think even if it will take a little bit more than the time, no problem. So we can.
Because this is my time. This is not. I'm not going on till 11 o'clock at night. So maybe 1 hour, 1.5 hours is enough. Okay.
Okay.
Also, I get very tired.
1 hour and a half is more than enough. More than enough.
Yeah. Good. So how is the situation in Lebanon?
In Lebanon, pandemic is less, but there is economical and dollar is still going high. There is political and economical problem. Still,
yeah, I read about it. It sounds really very bad, terrible.
Yeah. Situation is not good.
No.
You know, there is
and we
many.
wanted to
What
make
to do?
To Lebanon, but due to health situation and the visa situation, it's not possible in August. So we have postponed it to visit religious Lebanon and all Christian monasteries and different groups in Lebanon, French group, but we have just postponed it due to the difficulties with sanitary situation. But we will do it definitely afterwards.
Yeah.
And hope one day we'll receive you in Lebanon. It will be a great opportunity for this country to get your message and the message of Dharma. We need such a message.
Well, you know, now there is so much available, but the problem is only it's not in Arabic. You know, so you need to really translate lots and lots of wonderful texts so that your people can read them. And I mean, just helpful things, not that they become Buddhists, but that they, you know, whatever they are, Christian or Muslim, that they become better Christians, better Muslims.
Yeah.
This is the point.
That what we are explaining to people, and that what they are understanding that our message is not only for Buddhists or to preach Buddhism. It is a general message for everyone to be much more good in his own religion. And
exactly that.
So when we put also the translation of your interview in Arabic and in French in our site, there is a lot of readings, and people was very interested to read and also to follow, and they are asked more and more to listen and to watch you in much more interviews. It was a real good message of peace and peace, social peace and peace in mind for them. And they
well, I mean, most of the techniques are useful for everybody. I mean, it's, you know, we all want more peace. We all want to be more kind and open-hearted. I mean, this is universal need, not just for, you know, one place or one kind of people. Everybody needs.
Of course, of course. But especially this part of the world when Dharma, when we have to do much more work for Dharma.
Well, slowly, slowly.
Yeah.
But also in Buddhist countries, they're having problems.
How many nuns you have in your monastery?
About 108, something like that.
Ah, it's a good number.
Yeah, enough. Not too big, not too small.
It's good. And there is also a big town around. They can.
No, around there are mostly fields and so a few houses. The town is about 20 minutes by car.
Okay. So you are isolated. You are in a quiet place.
Well, there are houses, but mostly around us there are fields. You know, it's an agricultural area. Yeah.
Professor Jacques, you went there. You was.
Yes, of course. We went with French groups also. And once I did a 1 month retreat in Tashijong, just near the monastery, where is the monks' side on the monastic university. It was a good time. And cooler when it's hot in the plane, it's cool in so it's helpful for sadhana.
It's getting hot here too. Now the monsoons are coming, you know.
Yes,
so
yes, monsoon will be better. And a good meditation on impermanence when you are in the clouds. And
the temperature in your town this moment?
In 1 second.
So shall we start?
Yes. Yes.
5 minutes because they are still coming. 3 minutes and we'll start. They are still coming. A lot of people are coming.
Okay.
What is the temperature in your town this moment? بس أكترية ساعة فرنسوية جو. It is hot at this moment in your town?
It's getting hot, but this afternoon it rained very much. So now the temperature is nice.
It is not, it's not early for rain this moment. Normally it is in September.
No, it should start the end of the month. I think this was just rain, but it's not actually monsoon yet. But it's getting hot and humid.
Yes.
You know, it's building up. And the monsoon has arrived in South India, in Kerala. So then it will move up. And I think in another 10 days, 2 weeks, it should start.
Okay.
So this is nice. Once it starts, then it gets cooler. You know, it's nice.
And it is high. It is. What is the altitude?
No. We're about 3,000 meters.
3,000 meters.
Yeah, that's not very high.
Yeah.
No, maybe 1,300 meters higher for the monastery. Yes, 1,300 meters.
Yeah.
1,300 meters.
Something like that. It's not very high. It's okay. We don't get snow.
In 1 minute we'll start.
I just get some more water.
Yeah. بلا اسكي انا فوت. Okay.
Combien on peut accepter ça?
Combien on peut accepter, Jacques?
500.
500?
Oui.
Ah bon? Ouais. Quand on arrive à 100, c'est déjà pas mal. Ouais. Good evening for everyone. It is our lesson 43, and we are very happy to receive with us and to welcome our dear Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo for a second interview. The first one was very successful. A lot of people after it, they asked it, and we translated it to French, to English, and we published it on the net in 3 languages, Arabic, French, and the original language in English, with also the help of our professor Jacques Vigne, translate it in French. And from a few days also, we put the video on YouTube. It is available this moment, so you can watch it on YouTube. It is very simple. I wrote for you my name. It is the name of my channel also on YouTube. If you go there, and if you do a subscription, it is free of charge. You can watch all the videos, and when you are subscribed, you will receive information regularly for every new video. We are putting all these lessons in this channel of YouTube, so regularly you will receive information for every new one. The first interview, we translated it, and it has take a lot of success in Arabic, because maybe it was the first. I have already translated before one text and published it in one magazine in Arabic, and it is the second one in Arabic, and hope we multiply these interviews with Jetsunna Tenzin Palmo, so one day we can publish a whole book of when we collect all these interviews, like what our professor Jacques Vigne has done with others interviews in French. So no need to present our dear Jetsunma. She is very known, especially for our people. And Dharma communities in Lebanon, in Egypt, in France, in Arab world and in French world, they know her very well, and they are waiting for her messages, because her message is a message of peace for everyone, not for some religion, such a religion and such a people or such. It is so general, and when she speak, she send a message of love and peace for everyone, and that's why people are more and more interested to watch her speaking. Just by seeing her, they get some peace in the heart and in the mind. Jetsunna, good evening for our second interview. We are so happy to receive you, and
thank you,
we'll
Lewis.
start with you. My first question, Jetsunma, on the one hand, we are happy that Westerners are interested in non-duality. On the other hand, we have the feeling that they lack the basis to go far in this field. What do you think about this?
Well, you know, the problem is that nowadays, people, they want to build the golden roof on the temple, but they are not interested in the floor and the walls which will support that golden roof. And so, you know, until we understand duality, in other words, until we understand our own conceptual thinking mind, you know, we will not be able to stabilize and to sustain any glimpse we might have of the non-duality, right? Because our mind has no basis. You know, we have no real practice. And so therefore, you know, what is non-duality? Non-duality is our primordial awareness. It is the fundamental consciousness, our innate divinity within us, which is wisdom and compassion by nature. That we all have. And that goes beyond separation of me and others. It's when that sense of duality falls away, right? That's why it's called non-duality. There is a sense of interconnection with everything, all nature, all living beings on this planet and in the universe. But we cannot, people get glimpses, you know, suddenly they realize that whole ideas which they have built on their dualistic perception is all wrong. But because we don't have the basis, we haven't gone step by step, we cannot sustain that realization. And so this is why it's very important to understand our ordinary everyday consciousness and understand what is a thought, what is a feeling, how we think, in order to be able to maintain the realization, a genuine realization, which goes beyond the dualistic nature of the mind. So this is the thing. This is why, you know, there should be a progression, right? Like climbing a ladder. You know, you don't start at the top rung. You have to start at the bottom and climb up.
But how to practice non-duality, Jetsunna, practically?
Forget about non-duality. Understand duality. And then from that, the mind will of itself open up into another level of consciousness. But if we haven't got everyday awareness, if we don't have everyday mindful awareness, we are never going to get to that level of primordial awareness. Or as I say, if we get a glimpse of it, we don't know how to sustain it. So we have to start from where we are. You know, everybody wants the highest, but you know, you can't get the highest until you've gotten the basis in learning how to tame the mind, how to make the mind more calm, more clear, more, you know, to be able to have a mind which is not the usual monkey mind running around all over the place, right? We have to tame the mind, and through taming the mind, then we can train the mind. Training the mind transforms the mind, and by transforming the mind, eventually we will transcend our normal conceptual thinking mind. But it has to go in stages. We can't just immediately get to the top of the mountain when we haven't even got to base camp, right? We haven't even got all our equipment for climbing.
Jetsuna, we are quoting you in many questions of this interview. We took it from a book compiled by our professor, Jacques Vigne. And from these quotes, we are discussing and asking you many questions. You say, for example, if one has a purified mind, it is better to be a tiger than a rabbit. Can you elaborate this?
Okay, so normally it is, you know, in all Buddhist traditions, we are trying to overcome the negative, the afflictive emotions like our anger, our greed, pride, jealousy, and our fundamental egotistic ignorance. And so we are trying to uproot those and transform them into their opposites. But in the tantric tradition, then it is understood that the root, the source of these negative emotions like greed and anger, their source is actually a very powerful wisdom energy. And so therefore, for example, anger, the other side of anger is what is called mirror-like wisdom. So if one can recognize that source at the moment of anger arising, if one sees nakedly into the source, it transforms of itself into a very powerful wisdom energy. But it's like, how can I say, if we can control that energy, then it is very powerful. But it's like trying to drive a Ferrari. If you don't know how to drive, you're going to crash, you know. So better to go on a bicycle. At least if you fall off the bicycle, you won't kill yourself. So that's the point. Most people are not able to control such a powerful car. We start with something very, very simple, like trying to recognize our negative emotions and transform them into something positive. But for great practitioners, then that power of having very powerful emotions, if we are in control of them, not controlled by them, then that is a much more, takes us much higher, much faster. And in that way, it's better to be like a tiger, wild, than to be like a nice, placid little rabbit.
But, Jetsuna, mostly people, they take tiger as a symbol of anger. And you are telling that it is better to be a tiger than a rabbit.
The tiger here is not a symbol of anger, it's a symbol of power. You know, tigers are very powerful. You know, whereas rabbits are sweet, but they're a bit ineffectual, you know. And so that's just a symbol that those with very powerful emotions, if they are totally in control of the emotions and recognize the actual source of the emotions, then they are much more likely to gain great realizations on the spiritual path, rather than somebody who's very sweet and placid, but pretty ineffectual. So this is an encouragement for people who have very strong emotions, negative emotions, and feel that makes them bad people. if we are in control of those emotions, actually that is spiritually beneficial. But it doesn't mean that we just then can be angry and lustful, and that's a good thing. And that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that the essential nature of that very strong emotion is actually something very powerful and could be used for a great spiritual benefit if one is in control and not controlled by.
Okay.
This is the basis of Tantra, to take things which normally would be regarded as an obstacle and use them as a means for realization.
Okay. Jetsunma, one had the feeling that observing one's sensations or the contents of the mind is an endless process. Can a strong shamatha, a strong meditation practice, help to get out of this endless bubbling?
Yes, of course. I mean, that is the idea. Shamatha, or calm abiding meditation, is intended to eventually calm the mind. In the beginning, when we start, then, of course, for example, if we are sitting and watching the breath, breathing in, breathing out, then often, instead of becoming more calm, it seems like the mind is more wild than ever. And people complain, I have more thoughts now I'm trying to meditate than before. But of course, this is not true. It just means we're becoming more conscious of these thoughts. We always have lots and lots of thoughts, but normally we don't notice it because we're swept along by the thoughts. So we are learning how to acquire attention on single pointed concentration, right? That's what shamatha is all about. Now, eventually, if we just, we get carried away by the thoughts, we bring the thoughts back to the object of concentration, like the breath. Slowly, the mind begins to quieten down and our attention span begins to increase. We can stay with the object longer and longer. And the background noise, like having a television on, right? But you're reading a book.
Yeah.
So even though the television is on in the background, our attention is on what we're reading. We're just ignoring. We're not turning the television off, but we are ignoring the television, the noise coming from the television. So likewise, we ignore all the thoughts in the background because our attention is on the object, like our breath or sound or whatever. So gradually, the mind begins to calm down. And at the same time, we are cultivating the mindful awareness. We are cultivating the ability to observe and to know. And instead of being, the problem is that we normally, when we think, we're swept along by our thoughts, right? It's like a river in which we are submerged in the river and just running along. Now we are stepping out of the river, right? We're not stopping the river. We're not damming the river, but we are not in the river. We're sitting on the banks watching the river. And that in itself is an enormous step forward in our mind, that we now have some space in there, because we are not swept along and identified with our thoughts, but we are observing. This is not ultimate reality, but it is very important to be able to observe the thoughts without being the thoughts, right? And we recognize then that we are not the thoughts because we can observe them, right? Yeah. So that begins to calm the mind down. The more we can stand back and observe the thinking without judgments, without trying to change anything, just knowing the thoughts, naturally, gradually, the mind begins to, like if you're looking at, people who are playing around and messing around, but they suddenly notice that people are watching them, then, they start to put themselves, in better order and stop messing around. So the mind, when it sees it is being observed, naturally begins to, of itself, you know, correct itself and calm down a bit and be much more under control. We need to become the masters of our mind. This is the problem. We are the slaves of our thoughts and our feelings. But we need to be in control.
Is there some criteria, Jetsunma, to know is this monkey, you say, you just talk about this monkey mind. How to know that it is this agitation is less, or our monkey mind is still less in movement?
Well, you know, as the mind, as I say, you know, we have to tame the monkey and stop letting the monkey be the master, because the monkey is not very intelligent. In fact, the monkey is very ignorant and causes lots of problems. You let a monkey into your room and it will destroy the room in no time. So if you have a quiet monkey, then they would sit there quietly and they won't destroy the room. So this is the point, that we need to tame our mind. As the Buddha said, a well-tamed mind brings happiness. You know? That's the point, that we feel inwardly a sense of peace and a sense of clarity in our thinking. You know, we are no longer dominated by all our thoughts. We can observe the thoughts without being swept along by them anymore. This is already a big, big step forward, to get space in our mind and a kind of quiet, silent, knowing quality in the mind, instead of being caught up in all the you know, the noise and really, once we look at the mind, we see how very boring the mind is. You know, always thinking the same old thoughts, coming up with the same old memories, having the same old opinions. We're not very original. And so we stop being so fascinated by our thoughts, because we see that they're mostly just soap operas which are being repeated again and again. This is not who we really are.
One sage told about this topic, we have to be clever and know what the monkey is searching. It is searching a banana, so you should give him this banana, which is happiness or something like that. What do you think?
I think then he just wants more bananas. And I mean, if you see monkeys in a tree with fruit, what they do is they pull down one fruit, they bite it, they throw it down, they pull another fruit down. Before you know it, they've wrecked the tree. And underneath is all this half-eaten fruit. So don't put any control in the hands of monkeys. Right? Monkeys have to learn that they are not the master. Right? It doesn't work. I mean, however much you feed the monkey, he's never going to be satisfied. And he's just going to wreak destruction everywhere he goes. So don't put him in charge.
Okay. Jetsunma, the Buddha said the karma of anger is 8 times worse than that of desire. But it is more difficult to detach oneself from desire than from anger. That's what Lord Buddha said. Can you elaborate this?
Yes, I mean, the point is that when we are very angry, if we have a lot of anger in our heart, then we are not comfortable. We make enemies, people don't like us, we're always fighting with people, and basically we're not happy. So we'd like to get rid of anger. You know, many times people ask, how do I overcome my anger? And there are many, many books on how to overcome anger. Because everybody would like not to be angry, right? They recognize it doesn't make them happy and it causes lots and lots of problems. But desire is much more tricky, because we think when we get the object of our desire, we think we are happy. And therefore, obviously, the more we can desire and gratify our desire, that is the path to happiness. And it is hard for people to recognize that, as the Buddha said, the cause of our suffering is our grasping, desiring mind. So people normally don't want to get rid of their desire. They just want to satisfy their desire. And they don't recognize that actually that this unrest inside is the cause of their problem in the first place. As the Buddha said, greed is like salty water. We could, drink the whole ocean and we're still going to be thirsty. Sometimes I explain this with an example. When I lived in the cave up in the mountains, then outside there was like this kind of patio, which was of hard earth, right? Pressed earth, which was fine. But then when it was raining or when it snowed, then it all became like mud, right? So I thought I need to put some flagstones down, flat stones, so that I can walk on it and it won't be muddy. Now, on this flat earth, very hard packed earth, there were these little clusters of pink flowers with little yellow centers, very sweet, little clusters of just here and here and here, just little, very sweet. But when I got these stones, and I thought, I have to pull these up because otherwise they will unbalance the stones. Yeah. So I started to try to pull up these little flowers and they wouldn't come up. However hard I pulled, they wouldn't come up. And then I got a pickaxe and I started, digging down to see where are the roots of these little flowers. And eventually I dug up the whole of the patio because underneath, on the surface of these little flowers, underneath was this whole huge root system, thick roots like that, all interconnected. And all you saw was these very innocent little flowers. And I thought, that is like desire. It looks very innocent on the surface, but it's very deep, thick roots inside our psyche. And so it's very, very difficult to uproot desire.
So how to approach it in practical ways?
Well, I mean, actually speaking, through mindfulness, through being aware of the mind, we can see that every sensory sensation which we receive through our eyes, what we see, what we hear, what we taste, what we touch, everything gives us, we respond to it immediately with either we like it or we don't like it. This comes out later in one of your questions also. It's very important. Often it's so quick we don't even notice it. It's not a very strong sensation, but actually everything we see, we immediately have a pleasure or non-pleasure reaction to it. And if it's pleasant, if it's strong enough, if it's pleasant, then greed arises, desire, I like it, I want it. Or if it's unpleasant, then I don't like it, it's not nice, aversion, irritation. Immediately, there's this anger and desire, greed, they automatically come up. And if we don't do anything about it, then we find that influences all our actions, right? To grasp at what we like and to have aversion for what we don't like. People, things, taste, food, sounds, everything. So we have to be aware. We have to be aware of this as it comes up and then make our decision. Are we going to act on this or not act on this? Is it worthwhile acting on it? Is it useful or not useful? In this way also we become in control of our own mind. I mean, the whole point is that usually we're driven along by our thoughts and our feelings and our reactions. And we are the slaves to our impulses instead of being in control of our own mind.
Jetsunma, some teachers who call themselves Buddhist openly state or imply that they do not believe in the law of karma. Do you think this is right?
Well, you know, nowadays many Westerners are drawn to the Dharma, to Buddhism, because, you know, Buddhism talks, especially in the West, people, you know, when they think of Buddhism, they think of meditation.
Yeah.
This is not true in Asia, but in the West, this is how it is. And mindfulness now has become very popular. And also, of course, a lot of talk about compassion and loving kindness. And Buddhism is fairly logical and rational, you know, so therefore people are attracted towards it. But the problem is that they want Buddhism to fit in with their own preconceptions. You know, they don't really want to stretch their mind beyond what feels comfortable within their own comfort zone of what they believe and don't believe. Because in the West, mostly people don't believe in rebirth and karma. Therefore, they feel that that's something alien to them. You know, this is something Asians believe in, but not something which rational Westerners have to believe in. Which is fine. I feel that's fine, except when they start to say, because I don't believe in it, therefore the Buddha didn't believe in it. And all the millions of references to karma and rebirth in the texts and all the teachings from the time of the Buddha through all the masters up to the present day are based on misconception. They're all wrong. You know, I'm right because I don't believe it. Therefore, obviously, Buddha didn't believe it either. That, I think, is going too far. Because just because you don't believe it doesn't mean that the Buddha has to believe what you believe. I mean, we're ignorant. We don't know anything. You know, the Buddha was fully enlightened. And many masters that followed him were fully enlightened. And they say karma and rebirth exists because they have seen it. And so how can we say, no, it doesn't exist because I don't happen to believe it. It doesn't fit in with my preconceptions. So actually the point in Buddhism is this whole idea of samsara. Samsara meaning like a cycle of birth, death, rebirth, re-death, rebirth, rebirth, that we have to try to break through. You know, it's a wheel going round and round and round. If you throw out karma and rebirth, then it's no longer a wheel. You're born and then you die. So it's lineal. Right? That whole idea of a cycle, endless cycle, which is what we have to go beyond, doesn't exist. I live my life, and then when I die, that's it, finished. Then, you know, and in Buddhism, as you know, because Buddhist is non-theistic, therefore there's no idea of a creator God outside who is willing what's going to happen to us, and at the end is going to judge how we managed it. So karma says, well, no, what happens to us is the result of actions which we ourselves have committed in the past, and how we respond to what is happening to us now is moment to moment creating our future. So that there is also still a justice there. There is a balance there between doing good things and doing you know, evil things. There is a reason why things happen to us. It's not just arbitrary. But if you throw out karma and rebirth, then there's no reason why anything happens. Things just happen, and then how we respond to it is just, you know, for this time now. So why not just be comfortable, be good, be kind, and you know, help ourselves, help others? Why strive to go beyond all of that? There's no incentive. You know, it's all going to finish anyway when we die. Then, you know, what's the point? I mean, from a Buddhist point of view, the whole of Buddhist bodhicitta, the idea of striving for enlightenment in order to be a benefit to all beings, makes absolutely no sense if you've only got one lifetime.
Do you think, Jetsunna, that to be Buddhist, it is enough to practice and not necessary to believe?
Well, I mean, you can call yourself Buddhist. There's nothing which is saying you can't. And if you take refuge in the Buddha, the teaching, and the community, then that makes you officially a Buddhist. But you're thrown out most of the Dharma. I mean, and that's, if you're happy with that, then may you be well and happy. As long as you try to be a good person, it's enough. But personally, I think that we should think there is going to be a future life. Then we will try to do the best we can. If there is a future life, we will be glad that we made the effort. And if there isn't, then anyway, we led a good life. But, you know, I mean, there's nothing that there's no dogma which says you have to believe this or you don't have to believe that. But without karma and rebirth, and that whole idea of this endless cycle, so much of the emphasis of Buddhism doesn't make sense.
Okay.
But of course, you can call yourself Buddhist, nothing to stop you doing that.
Jetsunma, you say in the same book compiled by Dr. Jacques Vigne, you said in page 17, if we want to save the world, we have to save ourselves first. So my question, is it first possible and realistic to want and then to be able to save the world? And what can be done to reconcile this idealism with reality?
The point is that from a Buddhist perspective, we have a long way ahead of us. I mean, we have so many lives to accomplish wisdom and to accomplish the unconditional compassion. So we shouldn't be too much in a hurry. I feel that everything is impermanent. And gradually, we will transform. It doesn't happen overnight, just like that. We can intellectually understand everything, but to really take it from the head down into the heart so that we really transform takes time. But nonetheless, I honestly feel we should not be depressed because there's still so much goodness in the world, and we should focus more on the goodness. Somebody just sent me today, this evening actually, a thing about Lebanon and how there's a big shortage in a lot of medicines that people really need and that they can't get. And how now there's all this kind of website, I guess, where if you need certain medicines and your local supply doesn't have it, that other people will try to find it for you and give it to you. I mean, they're not even asking you to pay for it. They're just wanting, if you need this medicine, they will do everything they can to get it to you. So in that way, they were saying how in the Lebanon now, because of the crisis, it's bringing out the goodness in people to be kind, to be generous, to think beyond themselves and to do what they can for others. So I think we shouldn't just focus in on all that's wrong, that we also should recognize, how much goodness, inherent goodness there is in everybody really. And is often brought out at a time of great trauma and tragedy. So, slowly we also transform, but slowly. It doesn't happen just, just wanting it is not enough. We have to, like any skill, it takes a lot of practice to master.
Jetsunma, is it fair to say that much of the stress that plagues our modern world comes from an excess of desire and the fear that it will not be fulfilled? Wouldn't the basic solution be to let all these dissolve in the luminous space of meditation, and thus develop the capacity for spontaneous altruistic action?
Well, you know, obviously, if we all became enlightened, that would really help. I mean, to have a planet filled with beings of wisdom and compassion would be absolutely lovely, but it's not likely to happen. And the roots of greed and hatred in our psyche, as we said before, are very, very deep, you know, and they're kept in place by our fundamental egoic ignorance, you know, this sense of I at the center of everything, like a spider in the center of the web, endlessly weaving the web around it. So this is our problem. I mean, you know, we know that. I like this, I don't like that. I want this, I don't want that. So to uproot and overcome these deep habits takes an awful lot of wisdom and insight. And conjoined with compassion, even, you know, even very sincere practitioners have a hard time transforming their mind. It just takes a lot of work because we have very, very deep negative emotions, which from a Buddhist point of view, we inherited from endless past lives, you know, and so therefore they're very deeply ingrained in our psyche, and it takes time to transform. It's not going to happen overnight. I mean, really. So this is what meditation is for. I mean, it's for us to recognize what's going on in the mind, and then gradually to change that, to transform that, you know, using our daily life also as our practice. People we come into contact with, either they're nice to us or they're not nice to us, how we respond to that, how we use that as part of our practice, part of our training. So, you know, it's an ongoing process, and this is what our life is for, to develop our innate wisdom, to develop our innate compassion, and to uncover that. I mean, it's all there inside us, but it's covered over.
Jitsunma, you tell the story of an old yogi who had written as a maxim on a wall of his room, neither meditation nor distraction. And you explain this maxim by another from the shamatha meditation: place the gaze on the mind without distraction or grasping. My question: how to practically achieve this and avoid at the same time the two opposites, distractions and seizure?
Yeah, so when it talks about no meditation, what it means is that it's not a fabricated meditation, you know, with effort. You know, normally when we meditate, then we try to concentrate, we try to have single-minded, you know, concentration on the object and so forth. So no meditation means you don't do that. You just relax into this awareness of whatever arises, right? It's you know, without judgment, without trying to stop anything or follow anything, just sitting back and watching it, like somebody watching clouds in the sky. You know, you're not trying to change the clouds, you're just observing the clouds, and also the gaps in the clouds where you see the clear blue sky. So that is this relaxed awareness of whatever comes up, right? Distraction, on the other hand, right? No meditation, no distraction. Distraction means being carried away by our thoughts, right? So therefore, what we need is just to be aware, allowing whatever comes into the mind to pass through without any kind of judgment and without grasping it or rejecting it, right? Just knowing it and not getting caught up in it. So it's the awareness. We're resting in this basic awareness, this knowing quality of the mind. So then whatever comes up, thoughts, sounds, anything that comes, it just passes by. Someone said it was like being in a train and you're looking out of the train windows and, you know, you're passing the slums or you're passing beautiful countryside and you're just passing by. You're not getting out the train, right?
Yes.
So it's like that, you know, you're not trying, oh, I've got to look out the window. You're just relaxing in your seat, watching the scene go by, but you're not engaging with that scene, right? We're just observing.
Okay. Jetsuna, you advise to face the anger, page 18 of your book. So you advise to replay what made us angry and to watch it from a distance, like a movie. So we can try to see if we can replay the scenario of a different way. My question, is it in meditation that we have to do this and how to do it practically?
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, if we get very upset and angry with somebody, you know, and then we feel bad about it. Afterwards, we think, oh dear, why did I say that? Oh, I shouldn't have done that again. You know, we don't feel good about ourselves. So then we can just sit down in our practice, relax, focus on the breath to calm us down. Then, okay, replay that episode again, like watching on TV, you know, just no judgments, no excuses, no trying to think, oh, well, what I really meant was, just try to really see how it was, remember how it was, and to be honest with ourselves, right? And see what really happened and why it wasn't good. Why that was not a good script, and why it made us feel regretful afterwards. You know, we don't feel good. So then we can try to imagine how we could have played it differently, how we could have responded more skillfully. What should I have said? What should I have done? You know, because then we're training the mind with more positive habits. We got angry and upset and said bad things because we're habituated to being upset and angry. Now we are training the mind not to be. We are training the mind to be more patient, more skillful, more wise. So by replaying that, it's, you know, learning new habits, better habits. And next time we will maybe remember, I remember that was not the way to go, that we need to rewrite this script. And in this way, slowly we train ourselves how to be more skillful in our relationships with others and not come under the power of our anger as we would do in the past. I mean, it's all practice. Buddhists talk about practice all the time. And it's like anything, you know, it's like if you're going to learn a skill, you have to do it again and again and again and again and again and again until finally it becomes natural and we become proficient. So it's like that with the mind. Our mind is full of bad habits and we have to train the mind, get our neural pathways rechanneled, but as neuroscientists say we can do.
But if as you are saying, we have to do it again and again. So it's a very long process to train this mind.
Well, you know, we've had many and many lifetimes of doing it wrong. So it's going to take a bit of time to replay. But it doesn't take as long as all that. You know, neuroscientists, for example, they took a group of ordinary people, not meditators, right? Just a sample group of just ordinary people. And they showed them short video clips of things which made them very upset and very angry. And because they were watching their brain, and all those parts of the brain which have to do with anger and upset and, you know, lit up like anything. Then they took these people and they gave them a few weeks of meditation on loving kindness and compassion, just a short time every day. I mean, they weren't spending all day doing it, but, you know, maybe half an hour every day doing metta, loving kindness and compassion meditation for a few weeks. Then they again showed them video clips to make them upset and angry. And they were amazed to see these very ordinary people that instead of those parts to do with anger and frustration lighting up, a whole other part of the brain to do with compassion, empathy, and love lit up. So these very same kind of scenes, which normally would have made them upset and angry, now sparked off their empathy and compassion. So we can make new neural pathways. That's the beauty of it. We can change, but we have to, you know, make that determination to do so. And then we can surprise ourselves. Things which normally would have made us all upset, suddenly they're just done.
Jetsunma, you say about desires and how to deal with them, page 18 of your book, you say the problem with ordinary desires is that they constantly deceive us. We imagine all the time that if we can satisfy them, we will be happy. But the worst desires are like salt water. The more we drink, the more we are thirsty. The problem is not so much the desire itself as our attachment to it. My question, so how do we train ourselves to get rid of our attachment to desires?
Well, again, you know, I mean, on one level, the whole of the spiritual path is about letting go of our desires and our grasping, right? And as I said before, every sensory perception comes along with an automatic response of like and dislike, pleasure and pain, and that we don't notice that, so that we, you know, it's so swift we don't register it usually. But if it's strong enough, then when there's pleasure, I want it. If it's pain, I don't want it. You know, I mean, this is the two sides of it, anger and desire, right? It's always there. And so if we're more mindful, then we can see when these feelings arise, and then we can decide what we want to do with it. You know, is it useful? Is it not useful? And I think it's very important to recognize what's going on in the mind. Then we ourselves are in the control seat. Instead of being driven along by all our impulses, we can decide for ourselves, is this useful? Is this not useful? And if it's not useful, then we don't need to go for it. Just because I want it doesn't mean I have to have it. And then we're free, you know, because people think that just having more desires is going to bring more fulfillment, but it just brings more dissatisfaction. This is what we're saying, the salty water, you know, that you just get more thirsty. It doesn't, look in the West, you know, we have so much now compared with previous centuries. You know, I mean, our level of comfort compared with previous times, I mean, it's like a God realm. And yet people are more dissatisfied than ever, more frustrated, more angry, more upset, more grasping. It's never ending. It only ends when we say, okay, let go. To be content, to appreciate what we already have, to take joy in what is already given to us. That is a way to inner satisfaction. To think, wow, I already have so much. What more do I want? Why not give it away? And therefore sharing with others brings so much more delight to the heart than accumulating. You know, so anybody can do this. We all know this. You know, a kind, generous heart, which is happy to share what they have with others, is so much happier than a mind which is not. I mean, a while back, I met with a young woman whose name, her surname, is synonymous with wealth in America and in the Western world. I won't say what her name is, but the minute she said her name, I thought, wow. And she said that the one advantage of being born in that kind of family is that she recognized that merely being wealthy did not bring happiness. And she said most of her family are alcoholics or, you know, serious depressants. And the only people in her family who are genuinely happy are those who are philanthropists and very engaged in giving away their wealth and being involved in social projects for helping others. So, I mean, it's true. We all know it, but we don't, you know, follow that. Letting go and simplifying and being content is so much more joy than just accumulating more and more and more and more and hoping at some point we will be satisfied. I mean, inside we have this big black hole. It's never going to be filled with things or even with relationships per se.
Okay. Jetsuna, you advise the sadhakas. You said we can put ourselves to tidy up our interior house by throwing in the trash what is useless. Pick up everything and ask yourself, is it useful or no? Why did I carry this all along? Get rid of it, have a good big spring cleaning. So my question is how to properly discern and distinguish between what to keep and what to throw away.
Well, you know, recently I was reading that the Sufis have something called the 3 gates. And to pass through these gates, you have to ask 3 questions. Basically, is it true? Then, is it useful? And thirdly, is it kind? So many of our thoughts and our desires do not really meet that criteria. You know, they are not really truthful. They're not useful, certainly. And they don't extend towards being kind. So therefore, also, so many of our ideas and our opinions, they're very secondhand. I mean, when we're clearing out the mind, right? If we look at our thoughts, our memories, our ideas, our opinions, I mean, a lot of it we just got from other people. We haven't really examined it for ourselves. Is this useful? Is this true? You know, and so this is how we can discriminate. We can look at all these things. We can watch our thoughts as they begin to slow down and really examine them. And we can also look at that gap between the thoughts, the space between the thoughts, which is the inner silence of the mind. Because in that inner silence and spaciousness of the mind, as things come up in our thoughts, we can see so much more clearly that which is true, which is useful and necessary, which is kind. Yes, that we maintain. The rest, you know, why clutter our mind with all the useless junk which comes in, especially through the media? And it weighs us down, you know. It's like we're in a house which is just filled with more and more stuff, so we can't move anymore. There's no There's no space, there's no light, there's everything is just, you know, full of useless furniture, which we should have thrown out years ago. That's our mind. So meditation gives us inner space and inner silence and room to move.
Okay.
Mm.
Jetsuna, you say in page 20 of your book, as soon as we have the idea, I am vigilant, we are no longer vigilant. We just have a thought about being vigilant. True vigilance is non-verbal. My question, is being aware of our vigilance causing us to lose it, and how to keep it in this case?
Well, I think what I was talking about was being mindful, you know, vigilant in the sense of being mindful. So, for example, if we take being mindful of, say, drinking tea, right? So we should drink the tea without judging how we're doing it or commenting, but just drinking it, just knowing we're drinking it. Because if we start commenting, oh, now I'm drinking tea, oh, I'm being mindful of drinking tea. Well, it's quite easy to be mindful. Look, here I am drinking tea and I'm knowing I'm drinking tea and blah, 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 blah. We're not mindful. Right? Mindful means to be completely one with the action without commenting on it. Just knowing, wow, I'm drinking this water, not commenting on it, but just being one with the drinking of it, right? So as soon as we start to comment on it and start to be aware of being aware in that sense of, you know, it comes back into the conceptual mind again. It's no longer the mindful mind. Do you understand? I mean, our awareness, that witness, that observing, knowing quality of the mind is different from our ordinary mental stream. Right? And it's an air of being just completely present in the moment without comment.
Jetsuna, sometimes we recognize, we feel that we are losing our vigilance and attention with age. Is it normal?
No. I mean, I think it had nothing to do with age. I mean, young people are less mindful than anybody because their minds are so wild. But it's just a matter of really just relaxing. I think one of the problems is people get too tense. I've got to be mindful. And then it becomes like something tight in the mind. But it actually is a matter of being very relaxed in the mind and having that sense of open spaciousness, but at the same time focused. Either we know or we don't know. I mean, either we're aware or we're not aware. And just being aware just means that we know. And it's very, very simple. And the mind, it allows the mind to rest in that knowing.
Vigilance, attention, concentration. What is the difference between all these, according to Buddhist teaching?
Well, I mean, they're all just terms. So it's very difficult to know. I mean, in the different classical terms in Sanskrit are translated by different words, by different translators. So it's very difficult to know. But concentration, of course, means that we give our attention to one thing at a time. You know, it's like, yeah, it's attention really. You know, and single pointed concentration means, for example, if we're breathing, then we're just aware of the breathing and we're not thinking of anything else, right? And the more we are able to rest on the object of our attention, then the stronger our concentration comes, right? that, you know, so that until we finally merge with that, and that's like into a kind of samadhi.
Okay.
Vigilance often means just noticing if we are present or not present. It's a faculty of the mind. What is the mind doing at this moment? Are we mindful? Are we not mindful? So it kind of pops up to take a look, see what's happening in our mind. Have we lost our mindfulness or not? If we have, then it reminds us to bring back our mindfulness. If we are perfectly mindful, then it just goes back again. It doesn't stay. So it's the ability to bring attention to what's happening in the moment.
Okay. And
inside ourselves and outside. Yeah, you know, because normally we're just swept along by our thinking. We don't even know we're sitting when we're sitting. We're walking along, but our mind is all over the place. It's not even conscious of our feet touching the ground. And so we miss so much because our mind's usually caught up in the past, or it's planning out or anxious about the future. But actually what's really happening right now, we're not there.
Okay.
And so we miss it.
Jitsunma, you say, page 21 in your book, behind the cacophony, the noise of pain, there is the underlying silence. So it can actually be a great practice. My question, how can one leave the loud, imposing sound of pain and arrive at the underlying silence?
I've lost you. Where are we? What number is that?
The question, it is 13.
13?
Yes, 1-3.
I don't have question 1-3.
I-
Oh, yes, I see. Oh, behind the cacophony of the noise, the pain. Yes, we're dealing with pain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is really, I think it's very important for people, how to deal with pain. Because if I can find it, I did, sorry, I have made some notes, but I've lost my notes.
It is about, you said about.
Yeah, it's okay.
cacophony.
Got it, I've got it. So resting in the pain, right? We, instead of resisting it, usually when we have pain, we want to avoid it, right?
Yes.
We hurt ourselves, we resist that, we don't like it. Right? So the Buddha said there are two kinds of suffering, two kinds of pain. There's a physical pain, which is unavoidable because we have a body, right? So at some point or other, our body's going to hurt. So that's basically, you know, you can take painkillers, but essentially there is going to be some physical pain at some point. But the second kind of pain, the second kind of suffering is mental suffering. In other words, I have physical pain and I don't like it. It makes me unhappy. I want to avoid it. Oh, poor me, look, I'm suffering, right? So that is avoidable. We don't have to resent our pain. We can accept our pain, right? And, you know, not get so worrying about that. And at the same time, if we have pain, that's very strong sensation in the body, right? So we can use that instead of trying to get away from it. We can use it as an object of our attention because it's so powerful, right? I mean, it's we can, without judging it, without resisting it, we can observe it, right? So we know the pain, the feeling, and we're with it. And as our concentration feeling all the different kinds of pains, stabbing pains, searing pains, all different, just watching it without trying to resist it, just knowing it as an object of meditation, then the mind settles down and it goes beyond that sense of the noise of the pain. It goes into a silent level beyond the pain. Can be a very powerful meditation, actually, because it's so compelling. But normally we tighten up and resist it. We don't want. If we open to it, then it's different.
And we refuse pain, and sometimes we are too much afraid to get pain.
Exactly. And this causes mental suffering. And it's the mental suffering which is not necessary. We don't have to have the mental suffering on top of the physical suffering. It depends how our attitude towards physical pain. If our attitude towards physical pain is openness, acceptance, and using it as our practice, then there's no mental pain. Mm-hmm. This is why great practitioners, even when they're very, very ill and sick, they're still very cheerful. Mm. They're not suffering in their mind. Mm. They're only suffering in the body. The mind is not suffering.
So first step is to accept this pain?
Yeah. Pain is just pain. And we can even, there are practices for imagining this kind of pain, whatever pain we have, that we're taking in the pain of all the world and giving out health and well-being, so we can use it to develop our empathy and compassion. In which case, again, the mind is not upset. The mind is not suffering.
Okay. Yetsuna, you say about anger generating bad karma in page 24 of your book, even if the cause is just, if we are motivated by anger, it will create bad karma for us. My question, does anger always create bad karma? Even to restore goodness, should one not have anger?
Okay, so the problem with what is called righteous indignation, righteous anger, fueling our decisions and our actions, is that still the root is anger, which is a negative root, right? And people who have a lot of inner anger can always find good causes to be angry about, right? They're always going to find something, and they're going to be self-righteously, campaigning against this or that. There's always something, because there's so much wrong in the world, right? But what happens is that this is just like throwing oil onto the fire. It doesn't help us to overcome our inner anger. It's still fueled by anger. So there's always that sense that I'm right, which means you're wrong, right? And so immediately there's conflict.
Yeah.
Because fueled by this sense of, indignation, and that arouses anger in the opposition, right? So there's always going to be conflict. Yeah. They're never going to come to any kind of viewpoint except my viewpoint, which is right, yeah. Right? So therefore we create conflict and opposition. It doesn't resolve the problem. It will never resolve the problem, because it's fueled with a negative, we need to act out of compassion and clear seeing, pure motivation. Compassion isn't just all sweet and passive and sort of weak, as people imagine. Compassion can be very powerful, and it can even sometimes manifest as being quite wrathful. But the root is not anger. The root is clearly seeing the situation and how to deal with it. Like with a child, if you have a child, the mother is watching the child, and there's a pot of boiling water on the stove, and the child is going towards the pot of boiling water, and the mother says, no, don't go near that pot, you'll burn yourself. And so the child goes closer, and then the mother says, no, don't go near there. And the child, of course, starts reaching up. And so the mother will shout at the child and pull it away, and shake the child. But she's not doing that out of anger to the child. She's doing that out of compassion, recognizing the child is doing these things because of its own ignorance. And in the end, that will hurt even the child. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? And so she can appear to be very wrathful, and the child is frightened, but she doesn't hate the child. She loves the child. And that's why she wants to stop the child from doing actions which will cause suffering to the child and to others. And so when we see people doing things which are wrong, we feel compassion for their ignorance and for all the things they are doing, which are going to create so much harm for others, harm for themselves through bad karma. And we are motivated to stop them. But we want to stop them because of our understanding, our seeing the situation more clearly and out of our compassion, not because we want in any way to hurt them or because we hate them.
Jitsumna, according to your own picture, we can have a compassion and be a tiger in the same time, because you advise to be a tiger.
Well, I mean, we can, in Tantra, the Bodhisattva of Compassion is Avalokiteshvara, and he's shown as being white, smiling, holding a lotus, everything you think of as compassion, right? Very sweet. Om Mani Padme Hum is his mantra. But the reverse side of this white, smiling Bodhisattva is Mahakala. Mahakala means the great black one. And he's the chief of all the protectors, the Dharma protectors. He's very off like this. But he's compassion, right? Very powerful, very terrifying, but not based on anger, based on wisdom and compassion. He's the other side of Avalokiteshvara, this peaceful Bodhisattva. So sometimes, even Bodhisattvas have to appear wrathful in order to stop people from doing things which was going to cause so much harm to themselves and to others.
You mean that he show anger without being angry inside?
Yeah. I mean, the person looking at him will interpret that as anger, just as the child will think, oh, mommy is angry with me. But mommy isn't angry with her. She loves her child and she's trying to protect it from harming itself. But it interprets her demeanor as anger, because that will stop the child from doing things which will cause harm for itself and for others. So this is the point. Sometimes we have to look like we're very wrathful, but it's not coming from actual anger and hatred. It's coming from clearly seeing the situation and how these people are completely messing everything up and have to be stopped.
Jitsumna, in talking about daily practice, you say that the lamas you met in page 26 of your book, you said, they all agree that the real path to success is to stay focused and keep the practice simple and meaningful to you. My question, what does simple and meaningful practice actually mean to you and to us?
Okay. So there are so many paths, spiritual paths. There are so many spiritual practices which are available to us nowadays, you know, more than ever, ever, ever. And at the same time, our lives are so busy, so complicated, and our minds are so full of, you know, so crammed full already. So what we need is a spiritual practice which doesn't act as an extra burden on top of what we've already got. You know, our daily lives are already a burden. We don't need extra to make our lives even more complicated. And some, you know, spiritual paths are very complicated. So our minds are already filled with all our views and ideas and opinions, and what we're fed with in the media, you know, all the things people watch and the movies, television, most of it junk. Our whole lives are so cluttered and so busy. So therefore we need to open out. As we were saying before, we need to have a practice which helps us to clear away some of the clutter, make some inner space inside ourselves, not add more complications. So therefore it's good to find a practice which is simple and easily integrated with our daily life, right? So different people are different, and what appeals to one person might not appeal to somebody else. I mean, it's not that there's a one thing for everybody. Different people, you know, like food, you know, different people like different food nourishes some people, other people are allergic to it and makes them sick. So in general, to keep the practice very simple, I think it's very important to try to cultivate our mindful awareness, you know, our presence, a sense of presence in our lives. And at the same time, to cultivate having an open heart, to be more kind, to be more generous, more patient. This is very simple, but the thing is that it means that everything which happens to us in our daily life is helping us to cultivate. It's not a separate from our daily life.
But people mostly, they think we should do some intensive practice, like what you have done in your cave, something continual and very intensive, so many meditations in the day. Is it true?
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you have the opportunity to do a retreat, it's very helpful. I mean, it's like if we are training to be a musician, obviously it helps not only to have a good instructor, but also to devote as much time as we can to mastering our instrument, right? Or the sport. If you want to be a footballer, you know, you have to spend a lot of time, you know, practicing your football in order to be competent. And so likewise, you know, it's good to have a daily practice. And also, if one has the opportunity to do guided retreats, so that one has the opportunity to become one with the practice. But unless we also take that practice into our daily life, it's never going to really transform us. The whole point is our mind has to transform. We're not so angry. We're not so greedy. We're not so jealous. We're not so absorbed in me. We're much more interested in others and helping others and being more centered in ourselves. Our minds become more calm, more present. You know, I mean, one way also is like for some people, it helps them to, for example, repeat a mantra or a very short prayer throughout the day, silently in their heart. This also can help us to become more centered. Different people are different, but whatever is our practice, we should integrate it with our daily life also. Otherwise, it won't work.
In your monastery, Jetsunna, you advise to your nuns intensive practice or simple daily practice?
Well, most of our nuns are studying. They're studying Buddhist philosophy. So mostly, but they also do rituals every day, and we do half an hour of practice, of shamatha practice every morning. Then now on Sunday, they are going to start a 2-month retreat during which they all keep silence. So you have these 100 young women all keeping quiet and not talking to each other for 2 months. It's quite amazing, actually, they do it. So this helps them to during that time, they become extremely centered and concentrated. And I do try to encourage them to be mindful during the day, but they're all young women. So, and some of them are children. So, but we give them exercises in learning how to be a bit more mindful. And they're good girls. They're good.
Okay. In fact, Jetsunma, you advise making daily life itself a practice. You said in page 27 of your book, if we don't use our daily life as a practice, nothing will ever change. It is not enough to go to Dharma centers or even to do just one daily meditation. It doesn't matter how much intellectual knowledge we absorb and with what intelligence we understand concepts and ideas. My question, how can daily life, which often happens automatically and very quickly, how it can be transformed into a spiritual practice?
So we've been talking about this the whole way through, that we have to cultivate our mindful awareness, not get caught up all the time in past memories or anxieties and too much planning for the future, but to stay present with what we are doing in, you know, what we are doing is what we are doing, you know, to give our attention to what is happening in the present moment. And I mean, you know, that's what our daily life is for. Right now, where is our mind? This is what we need to look into, you know, as much as we can remember. Right now, what am I thinking? What is our mind doing? Bring attention to the body when we are moving, when we are walking, to know we are walking, when we are sitting, to know we are sitting. Just bring ourselves back. If we're getting stressed, bring our attention back to the breath, you know, breathing in, breathing out. Just bring ourselves back into the moment. And whoever we meet, to recognize that in our hearts, all beings would rather feel okay than suffer. Just as I would rather feel better than worse, you know, we all would like to feel nice. None of us really want to suffer. And recognize that in all beings, we have that. So to wish them well, however they are treating me, whether they are rude or indifferent or whether they're friendly, from our heart, we wish them to be well and happy. Cultivate generosity, sharing, cultivate patience when people are being difficult, when circumstances are difficult. All of it is a practice for us. And in this way, our daily life becomes our practice. And in that way, slowly, inside ourselves, we feel that there is a change happening. I always say, I mean, others also say too, that the best commendation for our practice is when our families say, you know, you're much nicer nowadays. What are you doing? Then we know we might be getting somewhere.
Jetsunna, you just talk.
Because it's in the ordinary things. Are we nice? Huh?
No. you just talked, Jetsunna, about training the mind. So we should train it in daily life mostly, or in meditation, or both? How to train it?
Both. It's not either or, it's both and. So we should have a daily practice and then carry that practice into our daily life. And when we have the opportunities to do some retreats, especially guided retreats if we don't know much, and in that way, our spiritual progress is the focus of our life. How can I use this life to be of real benefit to myself in the inner meaning of it, and how to be of benefit to others? That's what life is about, making spiritual progress in order to be of benefit to the world.
Because people sometimes
do that, you know, including people who are difficult. How are we going to learn to be patient if the people aren't difficult?
Sometimes we look to others, sadhags, or ourselves. We see that they are very good in meditation, but not much as good in daily life, or the opposite thing. In daily life, they are very good, but in meditation, they have no experiences. They are not so regular.
So it's good to keep the balance, you know, that you have the inner practice and that practice radiates into your daily life. I mean, when we're in, you know, like if we're in the temple or the church or the Dharma center, and they're in the mosque where it's perfect and looking very, very nice. But then when we go back into the family or back into our job, then we are not nice. Then what's the use? You know, I mean, it's better to be nice in daily life, and even if we are not especially religious, you know, other times, rather than looking very, very religious and then actually being very, very difficult people. But the very best is to do both. And support each other with the two. You know, the two should be, you know, our daily practice and our daily life should support each other.
Okay. Jetsunna, you have known our master Swami Vijayananda for a long time. What do you remember about him, and what impression remains in you of him after 12 years of his departure?
Well, you know, actually, I really didn't know Swami Vijayananda very well. I only met him on a very few occasions when I went to Mars Ashram. So I really am not the person to talk about him. But my impression of him at that time, when I did meet him, was that he was a very kind and wise old monk, and one who had really become one with his spiritual sadhana. I mean, he was genuine, right? He was a man of great integrity. And I also liked him because he had a very nice sense of humor. And he liked to laugh. And I always think that's a very good indication.
That's all. Jetsunna, you often advise your followers, you said, push yourself gently. What does this mean in practice? How to push ourselves gently?
Well, I mean, the problem is that often when people get interested in meditation or in the spiritual path, the ego takes over, and the ego is very idealistic, or else it's very impatient, right? And it wants to achieve as soon as possible, right? I want to get enlightenment. How do I know how soon I'm going to get enlightened, right? So this is the ego talking. So then if we push too hard, our ego is pushing. Then what happens often is that we get imbalanced. The pranic energies get unbalanced, and we can get very sick, actually. And also we can get very stressed, very tense. And it's counterproductive. And if we get into these chronic imbalances, it's very difficult to overcome, actually. It causes a lot of mental stress and also can cause physical sickness. So we have to be careful. On the other hand, if we don't make any effort or don't make enough effort, then we're not going to move and we're not going to get anywhere, right? So the Buddha, he described this by saying it's like there was a monk who was pushing himself very, very hard and got in really quite a lot of trouble. And the Buddha appeared to him and said, before you became a monk, you were a musician. You played the lute, like a guitar. So when the strings were too tight, what happened? And he said, oh, if the strings were too tight, then it made a harsh sound and maybe they broke. And if the strings were too loose, then it didn't make enough sound. So then you had to tune it properly. So then it made a beautiful melody. And so that is like our practice. As the Buddha said, that's how you practice, not pushing too hard and not pushing enough. You know, you have to make a balance so that one moves forward. And when spiritual life makes a beautiful music. So at the beginning, therefore, it's good to keep our sessions shorter, do more sessions, but short, not too long, so we're not pushing. Because if we do something and we enjoy it, then there's no stress and there's no effort. It's just we enjoy doing something, then we just do it. It just flows. So likewise, when we are practicing, if we keep our sessions quite short, we can enjoy it. And then we think, oh, let's do that again. That was nice. That felt good. If we push too hard and we try to sit for too long, then the mind gets bored. We have to push. And in general, we end up very stressed. So in the beginning, it's good not to push too hard.
Okay. Jetsumna, our interview is on the last questions, and the last word, it is on you. What do you have to tell us as a last message for this interview? It was so nice and so easy to listen to you, and we give us this moment much more time than before. So we hope to listen to the last message of you. What do you advise for Lebanon, for France, and for all these people who are hearing you this moment?
Well, I think what we've been saying all along, the important thing is how to become a good human being, how to cultivate a good heart, because the world is very much in need of people with good hearts. So that's what we need to do. How can I be a good human being in this world?
Okay, that is.
I mean, forget about it. Just be nice. Just be a good person. If the world was filled with good people, it would be a different world. So cultivate our kindness, cultivate our patience, cultivate the ability to become more present, but especially just be a nice person to your family, to your friends, to anybody you don't like, to the world in general. Just try to be good.
You just talked about Lebanon and about medicines, lack of medicines in Lebanon. So first, we thank you to have this attention for our country, for our poor country even. Do you have something also to say about this country in this very difficult situation?
You know, this is samsara, and samsara by its nature it's difficult. I mean, you know, it's not going to, you know, if we look at our history,
is it
always,
a collective,
not just now, but in the history, everything is connected. I mean, human beings are connected, and you know, the economic situation is created by human beings. The political situation is connected with human beings. We are controlled by people whose minds are not in control. And this is the problem. They are controlled by their afflictive emotions. They are controlled by their anger and hatred, by their greed, by their pride and arrogance, by their jealousy and envy, and by their consuming ignorance. That is what is in control, and those people are controlling our economy and our politics and the world in general, our business and everything. So of course things are going to go wrong, because the very source is negative, is perverted. I mean, all the things which, the poisons, in Buddhism they are called the poisons. They're the poisons of the mind. And as long as we are controlled by people who are controlled by the poisons, then our whole society is poisoned.
Mm.
But within that, there is goodness.
Mm.
And within that, there are beautiful beings. We're not all bad. I mean, our inherent nature, even of the worst of us, is very pure and good.
Mm.
But in the meantime, also, you know, even in the, you know, lotuses grow in the mud, right?
Mm.
And in the most muddy situations, beautiful lotuses grow. So, you know, also rejoice in the beauty that people show, the compassion that people show, the generosity that people show, the unselfishness that people show. It's very beautiful that even in all this anxiety and distress, there are very, very lovely people there.
But Jetsuna, you think, is it a collective karma to be in such a difficult situation in the same country, in a small country, and in a situation which is very difficult?
You know, Buddhism doesn't really believe in collective karma. It believes that we are all the heirs of our own karma. We're the owners of our own karma. But it might be our karma to be reborn into situations which are suited to the kind of karma we have.
Hmm.
You understand? So
Yeah.
that way, or the people who have similar kind of karma would be reborn in the same kind of situations.
Hmm.
So in that way, it is true, but nonetheless, the more obstacles we have, the stronger we can become within ourselves. I mean, stronger spiritually. So we don't have to just always be in very peaceful and pleasant situations. Sometimes that is not spiritually very helpful. Sometimes very difficult situations are the best for us to really develop and learn and become inwardly strong and develop all the qualities that we need, like compassion and so forth. So it's not what happens to us, the outer circumstances, but how we respond to those circumstances, which is what counts.
Okay. Jetsuna, we are very grateful to you to give this such a precious time, and we are waiting for the next interview. As we said in you know, in Upanishad they said waiting is the highest purificator. So we are waiting you, as we wait from the first interview to the second, we are waiting you for the third interview. It will be in August, I think. And so we are always waiting from first, second, third, maybe fourth. So always your interviews are so nourishing for us, and thanks, a deep thanks, a deep graceful for all this knowledge you gave us, and see you in next August.
Thank you, Lwiis. Thank you. And really, from my heart, I wish well not only to you, but to the Lebanon and to the Middle East in general, and to all these countries around you which are suffering so much at this particular time, like Palestine. Human beings are amazing, but nonetheless, our nature is beautiful despite everything. So we must have hope that change and impermanence will bring about more peace and more prosperity to your countries in the future.
The last word.
May you all be well and happy.
The last word is for our Professor Jacques Vigne. Maybe he wants to tell something. Jacques, it is your turn to talk. On t'entend pas, Jacques.
I think he's going to.
I think it will be good that we will write these words, because in Latin they say verba volent scripta manent, and so it's good that these interviews would be written, but also thanks to the video, people will have a possibility, even those who were not here, to feel the energy of Jetsunma, and that will be very precious. And so we will be happy to meet. Maybe as everyone is here, we could fix the date. I see there is 10 of August is, no, 11th of August is Wednesday. So if Tenzin Palmo agree, we could fix this time for everyone. Everyone is present like this. It will be more simple to know for them.
So Jetsunma, you agree for 11th of August?
As far as I know, that's fine. I am intending to do a month retreat, but I think that will be in July.
Okay. And if you have a change, you tell us, and we modify.
Yeah.
And we meet every Wednesday. So it will be nice in Yao to
Okay.
have a lot of digest with today's talk.
And as I told, I will repeat, the first interview is already on YouTube, and I wrote for you my name. So you go to this name at a channel, and you will get, if you subscribe, you will get regularly about all new videos uploaded. This interview will be also put in few days on YouTube, and also it will be translated, I think, by our Professor Jacques Vigne to French, and it will be translated to Arabic and put in also some site. I wrote to you the name of the site and also my WhatsApp number, so you can write to me, and if you save my number, I will send to you regularly all our activities in these lessons and other activities.
And so for donations to DGL Nunnery, I put the link of there is Sakadita France, and so I put the link in the chat. I will put it again on the other files also, because some people, they came later. So I will put again all the files. Like this, you can check if you have well received or well downloaded all the files. And I put also the questions in French and English. And so next Tuesday, same time, 5:30 French time, we will do the replay of with underlying French text. And so people who, quite a few people, Tenzin Palmo told me they will come next Tuesday, because they don't understand in English. So they will do the French session with written translation. And afterwards we discuss again, and it will be helpful for people. And thank you
both. Thank you, Lwiis.
Because it's late in India. And thank you to stay so late with us.
11 o'clock night. Time for me to go to bed.
Yes.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for you. Alors, Jacques, maintenant la parole est à vous. Quelle impression tu as eue? C'était un long déjà interview. Cette fois, on l'a interviewé pendant un peu plus qu'une heure et demie. C'est ce qu'elle a déjà, elle s'est proposée. Elle m'a dit que si ça prend même une heure et demie, ben, pas de problème. Et heureusement qu'on a multiplié les questions plus qu'on a voulu. Autrefois, on a posé 14. Moi, je me suis dit, cette fois, on posera un peu plus. Si elle répond, tant mieux. Sinon, on peut les laisser à la fois prochaine. Donc, on a bien ménagé pour l'avoir pendant une heure et demie. Maintenant, nous souhaitons t'écouter pour une première impression que tu as eue de tout, qui, à mon avis, était très beau, très simple et en même temps très profond.
Oui, je pense que pour les questions, à la fois Lwiis et moi, on est parti de choses qu'elle dit, y compris de choses qu'elle dit souvent, sur lesquelles elle insiste. Et donc, c'était bien pour les gens qui la connaissent peu ou pas tant que ça, de l'avoir dit, enfin, d'entendre ces choses dites par elle-même. Et donc, c'est toujours cette question de la présence. Et puis, même par Zoom, donc on sent bien sa présence. Et l'avantage, c'est que c'est enregistré, donc on peut revenir aussi à cette présence. Et donc, en écoutant ces paroles, pour moi, je me suis très souvent souvenu de Tayul Gompa et de la grotte au-dessus. Donc, elle a passé 6 ans à Tayul Gompa. C'était à l'époque des bâtiments dans le vieux style tibétain, en pierre avec des grandes poutres. Et maintenant, bon, ils ont mis du ciment, c'est peut-être moins bien, mais enfin, c'est plus pratique quand même, surtout l'hiver quand il y a beaucoup de neige. Et elle a passé 6 ans là. Et puis après, elle était bien, j'étais dans la forêt, mais elle trouvait quand même qu'il y avait trop de vie sociale entre les moniales, qui étaient au fait des femmes des villages alentours. Et donc, elle a eu envie de partir dans la vraie solitude dans sa grotte. Et dans sa grotte, donc, elle est restée en tout 11 ans et demi, y compris l'hiver où ça pouvait descendre à moins 30 dehors. Mais bon, c'était fermé, puis elle chauffait avec un poêle. Mais enfin, il faisait quand même pas très chaud à l'intérieur non plus. Et j'ai passé une semaine en été pendant la période plus chaude dans sa grotte. Et c'est vrai que c'est puissant. Hein, déjà, la montagne est puissante. On est en face des sommets du Laoul, qui sont les sommets les plus élevés de l'Himalaya de l'Ouest, c'est-à-dire 6500 mètres pour le Laoul lui-même. Et puis, il y a surtout sa présence, hein, en particulier quand j'allais à la source. Hein, c'était la même source que quand elle était là il y a 30 ans, une trentaine d'années. Hein, et donc, voilà, il y a un sentier qui suit la courbe de niveau sur 800 mètres et on arrive à des sources et un petit ruisseau. Et donc, voilà, on sentait bien sa présence. Et quand je vois tout ce qui s'est passé en une semaine, je peux essayer d'imaginer tout ce qui se passe en 11 ans et demi d'une retraite intensive comme ça. Et même vous, je pense que vous avez fait des retraites et donc vous êtes consciente de ça. Hein. Quand on fait une retraite, tout est intensifié, les difficultés, mais aussi les bonnes expériences. Et donc, on peut supposer que ces gens qui ont fait de longues retraites, comme Swami Vivekananda, comme Tenzin Palmo, comme des ermites chrétiens aussi, ou des moines chrétiens bon, qui ont une vie très régulière et centrée à l'intérieur, que ça purifie vraiment le mental et que ça aide à progresser réellement et, comme elle le dit très simplement, devenir de meilleures personnes.
Bah, Jacques, qu'est-ce que tu veux? On peut peut-être finir par une courte méditation guidée, très courte, par exemple, un quart d'heure, pas plus.
Oui, ou même moins, on peut dire 10 minutes.
Ouais, et comme ça, on finit parce que
Oui,
pour ne
c'était
pas trop tarder. Et
oui.
donc, je rappelle que d'abord, j'ai inscrit mon nom. Là, Lwiis Saliba, c'est essentiellement pour le canal à YouTube, là où il y a l'ancien, c'est-à-dire le premier interview avec Tenzin Palmo, et il y aura aussi, on va télécharger le deuxième dans un peu de temps, mais si vous inscrivez, c'est-à-dire à ce canal, vous aurez régulièrement toutes les nouvelles, les nouveautés. C'est ce qu'on va mettre déjà. On a mis jusqu'à maintenant, il y a 25 vidéos des anciennes leçons. Ils sont déjà available, ils sont prêts et vous pouvez les voir sur ce canal. Et on va continuer, il y aura une quarantaine de vidéos au moins. Et tout est gratuit, bien sûr. Et même l'abonnement, l'inscription, elle est gratuite. Si vous êtes abonné, vous recevez régulièrement toutes les nouvelles. En plus, j'ai inscrit le nom du site d'Art Biblion. Dans ce site, vous avez déjà les textes en français, en arabe et en anglais du premier interview et d'autres interviews qu'on a fait déjà avec Tenzin Palmo, et aussi des textes, des interviews qu'on a fait avec des médecins ayurvédiques, 2 médecins ayurvédiques de l'Inde, en arabe et en anglais, et avec aussi, vous pouvez voir à partir du site lui-même les interviews sur YouTube. Donc, il y a un renvoi direct et un link direct.
Oui, les interviews avec les médecins étaient importants aussi parce qu'ils donnaient leur méthode contre le COVID. Et donc, ils ont des tas de méthodes pratiques et des choses peu connues et des choses très simples. Et donc, ça vaut le coup, rien que pour ça, de regarder, puisqu'on n'est pas encore sorti de cette histoire, de regarder ce qu'ils recommandent contre le COVID, des médecins très expérimentés, puis qui ont les pieds sur terre, qui ont vu beaucoup de patients dans leur vie.
Et aussi, j'ai inclus sur ce site donc des renvois aux vidéos sur le YouTube avec une notice franco-arabe pour chaque leçon. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a là-dedans? Par exemple, il y a une méditation guidée contre la colère, etc. en quelques mots, ou bien il y a des questions-réponses sur ce sujet. Donc, à partir de ce site, il y a des renvois sur les leçons qui sont disponibles sur YouTube. Aussi, j'ai inscrit mon numéro de téléphone WhatsApp. Donc, si vous gardez et vous sauvegardez ce numéro, vous m'envoyez aussi un message. Je sauvegarde sur téléphone, bien sûr. Je sauvegarde votre numéro et je peux vous envoyer à ce moment régulièrement des avis et des annonces de toutes nos activités prochaines que vous donc recevez sur votre propre numéro de téléphone. Voilà, donc vous avez tous, et à vous maintenant de voir le mode de réception le plus convenable. Vous pouvez avoir les 3 à la fois, si vous voulez. Voilà, la parole est à vous, Jacques, pour finir cette belle rencontre, et cette rencontre assez calme et profonde en même temps, avec une petite méditation avec laquelle on finit.
Je pense qu'après une interview comme ça, on peut faire tout simplement la méditation du tapis. Qu'est-ce que c'est que cette méditation du tapis? C'est un nom qui m'est venu juste à présent. C'est qu'il y a des fils qui sont les fils de ce que dit Tenzin Palmo, l'enseignante, Et puis, il y a d'autres fils qu'on pourrait dire à 90 degrés, qui sont les fils de notre expérience à nous. Et le travail, une bonne partie du travail de la méditation, quand on est disciple ou appreneur ou élève, c'est de croiser les fils. Hein, si tous les fils sont parallèles dans un sens ou dans l'autre, mais il n'y a pas de croisement, jamais le tapis ne tiendra. Mais si les fils sont bien entrecroisés, plus il y a d'entrecroisement, mieux le tapis tiendra. Donc pendant ces 8-10 minutes, on cherche à croiser le plus de fils possible. On fait ça avec un souffle naturel, une posture juste. Et comme le dit sagement Jetsunma, hein, c'est son nom, ça veut dire la mère grande yogi. Jetsun, c'est grande yogi, grande yogini. C'est le titre de Milarepa. Jetsun Milarepa, c'est ce que lui a donné le maître de son ordre, l'ordre des... une branche de l'ordre, donc des Kagyu. Et donc, il l'a appelée grande yogini. Donc, on est attentif à ce qu'elle a dit, mais sans vouloir forcer non plus, sans vouloir tout retenir. On pourra retravailler les enregistrements, bien sûr. Mais pour l'instant, on encre-croise les premiers fils. Les fils, je dirais, latéraux, c'est notre expérience, et les fils qui s'éloignent de nous, c'est l'enseignement de Tenzin Palmo, et on entrecroise.
Jacques, ton micro est coupé.
Oui, une dernière remarque. Hein, donc, pendant 25 ans, j'ai été très souvent au satsang, aux réunions le soir avec Swami Vijayananda. Et mon habitude, c'était de rien faire le soir après, simplement méditer sur ce qu'il avait dit et prendre quelques notes. Voilà. Hein, enfin, même je notais ce qu'il y avait de nouveau dans ce qu'il disait. Et juste après, c'est le meilleur moment pour se souvenir, pour mettre les choses en place, parce qu'après, la nuit embrouille les choses. Hein. On se souvient bien sûr le lendemain de certaines choses, mais c'est embrouillé. Et donc, si on médite juste après, on a la mémoire plus claire. Hein. J'ai fait ça en médecine aussi. Je revoyais les cours le soir même. Comme ça, je les complétais dans mes notes. Et comme ça, la mémoire était très claire. Voilà, donc un conseil pratico-pratique pour finir.
بالعربية كي نترجم قليلا، نسينا الترجمة إلى الإخوة العرب المشاركين في هذا اللقاء. يقول الدكتور جاك فيني أن النصيحة الأولى وما مارسه دائما هو بعد لقاءاته مع معلمه سوامي فيجياناندا عبر أكثر من 15 عاما، الذي كان يفعله هو أنه كان بعد كل لقاء في المساء يتأمل فيما قاله سوامي فيجياناندا، وخاصة أنه كان يدون بعض أقواله، فكانت هذه الأقوال مثار وموضوع تأمل ليلي في كل ليلة، وكان لا يفعل في هذه الليلة سوى أنه يتأمل بما قاله معلمه، وهكذا تترسخ هذه التعاليم في ذهنه. وهذا ما ينصح به بعد هذه المقابلة الشيقة مع تنزين بالمو كل من حضرها أن يعاود التأمل فيما قالته ولا يفعل شيئا غير ذلك هذه الليلة.
Très bien. Au revoir à tous. Assalam.
Assalamu alaikum jami'an. Je vais répéter ce que j'ai dit en français, Jacques, pour l'annonce
Oui.
avant de terminer, pour l'annonce là de l'interview. وضعت اسمي واسم القناة على اليوتيوب لويس صليبا. إذا وضعتم على اليوتيوب هذا القناة تذهبون إلى هذه القناة. لقد وضعنا منذ أيام قليلة حتى اليوم 25 فيديو ل 25 درسا سابقا من هذه الدروس، بما فيها المقابلة مع تنزين بالمو، وأيضا مجموعة مقابلات مثلا مع أطباء هنود 4 مقابلات عديدة مع الدكتور قيس غوش، مع كثيرين آخرين، كلها أصبحت متوفرة على اليوتيوب، إضافة أيضا إلى التأملات الموجهة وإلى الأسئلة والأجوبة التي تلي كل تأمل. يمكنكم حضورها إذا ذهبتم، بمجرد أن وضعتم اسمي لويس صليبا تصلون إلى هذا اليوتيوب. يمكنكم أيضا أن تشاركوا أبونمون يعني في هذا القناة، والمشاركة مجانية في حال سجلتم اسمكم كمشاركين participant في هذا القناة، تصلكم تلقائيا وبصورة منتظمة كل جديد موضوع على هذا القناة، لأننا سنتابع وضع هذه الفيديوهات على القناة، قد تصل إلى 50 أو 60 فيديو أكيد بانتظام وبالتدرج. لا يمكننا وضعها مرة واحدة، نحتاج إلى وقت في ذلك. أيضا لمن ليس معه رقم تليفوني، وضعت رقم الواتساب. إذا أرسلتم لي رسالة عبر الواتساب وحفظتم رقمي، أحفظ رقمكم، وبذلك يتصلكم تباعا كل أسبوع جديد مع نشاطاتنا، دروس أو غيرها. أيضا وضعت اسم الموقع دار بيبليون، وضعت هذا الاسم لأن في هذا الموقع نضع أيضا نبوذات. مثلا المقابلة السابقة مع تنزين بالمو وضعناها مكتوبة بالفرنسية وبالعربية والإنجليزية مع رونفوا لينك رابط للوصول إلى المقابلة عينها على اليوتيوب. أيضا المقابلات مع الأطباء الهنود ترجمناها إلى العربية ووضعناها بنصها العربي وبالإنجليزي مع روابط وعلى اليوتيوب. كل ذلك متوفر على هذا الموقع، موقع دار بيبليون. بمجرد أن تزوروه يمكنكم أيضا أن تطلعوا على كل هذه المقالات. موعدنا المقبل هو في الأربعاء المقبل، والدكتور جاك فيني يعطيكم موعدا لمن يعرف الفرنسية. سيعاد بس المقابلة مع تنزين بالمو الثلاثاء المقبل ليس الأربعاء، إذن قبل يوم من موعدنا المقبل يوم الثلاثاء يوضع هذا الفيديو مع مناقشة لمن يتقن الفرنسية. Voilà donc, on a été pour longtemps un peu plus long aujourd'hui. Maintenant, on va finir notre rencontre. C'était beau et en même temps très profond et très calme. Ça donne beaucoup de paix intérieure à nous tous. Et notre prochain rendez-vous, c'est le mercredi prochain. Et ceux qui désirent avoir une traduction complète de l'interview de Tenzin Palmo, vous avez rendez-vous mardi prochain à 5h30 heure de Paris, 6h30 heure du Liban, pour une traduction complète et un débat sur cette interview très intéressant qu'on a fait aujourd'hui avec Tenzin Palmo. Voilà.
Voilà, donc si on fait un débat, il faudra prévoir peut-être 2h15 comme aujourd'hui, parce que l'interview elle-même fait déjà 1h15 et donc voilà, mais on le fera, oui, et ce sera sympathique. Voilà. Allez, au revoir à toutes et à tous.
Au revoir.
Merci, Jacques.
Merci de votre attention à tous et à toutes.
Merci.
Merci.
Merci à tous.
Merci beaucoup. Grâce. Bye.